All right, we've got some folks joining us. Excellent. If you're just joining us, hi, hello. We're going to wait just a few minutes before we get started to allow everyone an opportunity to get settled in. So sit back, relax, and we'll get started here momentarily. Just at 2 o'clock now. So we're going to go ahead and get started without further ado. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here this afternoon. Hopefully at the end of what has been a fruitful and exciting day for you, full of leadership education. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to participate in this conference, and especially for being with Dae'lyn and I here today. So we are here to talk about goal setting. Whoop, whoop. Exciting times. Before we go ahead and get started, we're going to do a few introductions just so you know who you're working with today. So my name is Natalie Kindler. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm a second-year graduate student in the CSP, College Student Personnel Program here at BGSU. And I have a graduate assistant in the Marvin Center for Student Leadership, where I work primarily with our leadership certificate programs as well as our student leadership assistants. So that's a little bit about me.
And my name's Dae'lyn Doe. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm also a second year graduate student in the College Student Personnel Master's Program. And my assistantship is with the Thompson Scholarship Program. So if we have any Thompson Scholars, hey.
Awesome. Thanks, Dae'lyn. So we are so excited to be here with you today to talk a little bit about goal setting. We figured before we get started, we should tell you a little bit about why Dae'lyn and I care about goal setting, why this topic is important to us. I know for me, goal setting is always important because I think I always want to be striving for something more. I always want to be improving, getting to that next level in what I'm doing and striving to my highest potential. And I think goal setting helps me get there. So that's a little bit about why goal setting matters to me.
Goal setting is important to me because it helps me to manage my self-doubt and my imposter syndrome. If any of you had the opportunity to attend the imposter syndrome session earlier, we kind of talked a little bit about that, but setting goals helps me be mindful and keep track of my successes so that I can remember all the progress I'm making and remember that as I move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So we encourage all of you to take a moment and think about why are you here? Why did you choose this setting? What entices you about goal setting? Just so that we're all kind of in the same headspace. If you feel comfortable, we would love for you all to use the chat feature to answer what comes to mind when you think about goal setting. So if you see that chat feature at the bottom of your screen, feel free to just type in there what comes to mind when you hear goal setting or setting goals? What comes to mind? I'll give you a couple moments here if you want to throw some thoughts in the chat. It can be about anything you're feeling. Long-term and short-term, absolutely. Yep, that's a good one. Any other initial thoughts? Striving for something you want, achieving success, yep. Yes, absolutely. Ways to be successful. I'm hearing a lot about success, a lot about staying organized and productive. Any other thoughts out there? We've got some, that's a great place to start for sure. Productivity. Yep. Most definitely. Overcoming struggles. Yeah, these are some great thoughts, and I'm glad that you're already kind of thinking about goal setting in this way. Dae'lyn and I are hopeful today that we can give you some things to think about as it relates to goals, to kind of maybe give you some new strategies for how to set goals and also how goals can connect back to your leadership. Because we believe that leaders are goal getters. And so that's why we are here today to talk a little bit about goal setting and as it relates to leadership. So thank you all for your contributions in the chat. Yeah, okay. So we're going to move forward and just speak a little bit. Let's make sure we're all on the same page in terms of some definitions as it relates to goals and goal setting and all of that. So the definition that we are using in terms of goal is really this: the result or achievement toward which effort is directed. So working towards an aim or an end, which this is kind of what some of you alluded to in the chat as we began. And when we think about goal setting, we're talking about developing a plan to achieve one's goals. Makes sense there, but making sure that we're all on the same page. And then we're thinking about leadership. If you are familiar with the Marvin Center at all in some of our programming, we definitely believe, and Dae'lyn and I both believe, that leadership is a skill that can be learned and honed over time. We don't believe that you're born a leader, but that everyone has the potential to be a leader through education, through development, through learning, and you can learn it and hone it over time. So those are some initial definitions that we wanted to just make sure that that's kind of how Dae'lyn and I are approaching all of this as it relates to goals, goal setting, and then leadership.
So, why do we set goals? Lots of us have our own individualized reasons, but some of the main ones that Natalie and I want to touch on today are motivation. Goal setting can be a highly motivating tool. It gives you something to strive towards and reach for. A lot of times when we are thinking about goals, we think we are thinking those long-term ones, but really thinking about those short-term ones too, and how not only are the long-term ones motivating because you're thinking ahead, but also the short-term ones motivate you because as you get things done and work towards them, you feel better and better and keep moving forward. Confidence and competence are also another reason why you might want to set a goal. Setting goals and achieving them can be a great way to boost your confidence. And when you're working towards your goals, you build greater competence too. So not only are you looking back and thinking, wow, look at all these things I'm accomplishing, but you're also realizing how much you're learning along the way and how much you're growing as a leader. Accountability and community is a great reason to set a goal. If you do set a goal, we encourage you to share it with others. It can be a great tool for staying on track to achieve those goals. And also, by sharing your goals, you can encourage others to do the same and build a community. Having people around you who uplift you and help you support your goals is such a key piece in being successful. It really does matter who you surround yourself with because you want to have people who are on your team and encouraging you to move forward. Direction is another important reason why to set a goal. Goals provide direction, a plan, and a path. Whenever you have a vision for where you want to be, goals help you map out how you get there. And also, just because you can, you have the ability to change your life and you have the power to set goals and achieve them. So why wouldn't you do so? Why wouldn't you give your best and reach for the things that you really want out of not only your time at BG, but hopefully beyond too, and in your life in general.
I love it. Yes, why not? Because you can. So now we talked a little bit about why do we set goals. Let's talk about how do we set goals. So first we're going to talk a little bit about something that came out of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, which if you haven't read, I highly recommend you do so. Really, really awesome, thought-provoking stuff throughout that. So the way that James Clear thinks about goals, I'll break this down for everyone. So, most people, when they think about setting a goal, they think about outcome based goals. So, here are some examples of that. I want a 4.0, or I want to go to graduate school, or I want to run a marathon. Those are all what James Clear would define as outcome based goals. So, what Clear thinks is that there's behavioral changes that need to happen at all three of those levels. He argues that outcomes are what you get. So that's what is the outcome of doing a particular Habit. So outcomes are what you get. Processes, so that middle circle, if you're looking at the screen, processes are what you do. And then identity in the middle, that is what you believe. That is who you are and what you believe. So a lot of people think that changing habits, they need to think about what they want to achieve. But that leads to these outcome based habits that you're working towards. But Clear argues that more sustainable habits and ultimately goals stem from more identity based habits, thinking about who we wish to become first and foremost. So I think that is something we wanted to just put out there. And now we're going to talk about a few different strategies kind of building upon this. So the first strategy we wanted to provide is set a schedule and not a deadline. So what do we mean by that? Deadlines can be really restrictive when we think about goals, right? Sometimes if you set a deadline for something, you might end up feeling kind of like a failure if you don't achieve that goal by a particular time. So instead, if you set a schedule, if you break down a goal, or if you break down your habits and put them into more of a schedule than a deadline, that can kind of help you stay more consistently on the path working towards that goal. So think about that. How can I set a schedule for working towards my goal and not necessarily a deadline? So think that's one that we wanted you all to think about. The next one is think about who you want to be. And that I know can be a little bit like, what do you mean? Natalie, Dae'lyn, what do you mean by that? But we believe, and James Clear from James Clear's book, he talks about this idea that if you change your identity, so if we're thinking back to that bullseye, if you go to the middle section, if you think about who you want to be, the type of person that you believe that you are, if you start to change those thoughts on the type of person you believe you are, it can be easier to change your actions. Because I think it's easier to start processes that help you get closer to your outcomes if you start from the inside out. So that's kind of how we're using the bullseye to think about goals. So here are a few examples that I'm hoping are relevant for all of you out there. So let's think about, do you want to be a better friend? Let's think about what is an identity change that might need to happen if you want to be a better friend. So we're looking at that bullseye. Where do we start? So perhaps the identity change is become the type of person who always stays in touch with their friends. So maybe that's the identity change. And what is a small win for that? Or what is a small step in that direction? Call one friend every Sunday. That can be going back to setting a schedule. That can be a way to consistently build you towards working towards becoming a better friend. And it stems from that identity change. So I'm hoping that's making sense to everybody. Let's talk through a student example as well, because I'm assuming a lot of you out there are BG students, and let's think about it in terms of your student identity. So do you want to be a better student? I'm hoping yes. I'm hoping we're all wanting to be better students. But the identity change there might be become the person who prioritizes their academics. So if that's the identity change, what is a small step or a small win that can help get you in that direction? Perhaps it's setting a timer to work on homework for 30 minutes uninterrupted. Maybe that's the small win or the small step that will help get you in that direction. And then, of course, because this is a leadership conference, we got to talk about, do you want to be a better leader? I know I do. I know we're all working to be better leaders. So what is an identity change with that can help get us in that direction? Maybe it's become a person whose values and actions align, thinking about congruence, if you're familiar with that term. So what's a small win that can help us become a better leader? Maybe it's define your values and place them somewhere that you can see them on a daily basis. Because if you have that front of mind, this is what I value, this is what I believe. If you have that front of mind, that can hopefully then you can build towards working towards that if you keep it right at the forefront, so you see it every day and it can be front of mind for you. So hopefully those examples kind of help get you towards thinking through this identity based goal setting model that we're talking about. The next thing, and we kind of talked through this already, but starting small. We talk about those small wins, those small steps. Dae'lyn and I talk about this all the time, the importance of needing those small steps. Because small actions can really lead to big change if you think about it that way. And you need to start somewhere. Breaking a goal down into small, tangible steps can really make a big difference. And remember, you can't do it all and do it well. So you need to start small, because little by little, progress is going to add up and can lead to some really, really big changes. The next one, another strategy, which I'm sure all of you have probably heard in some way, shape, or form before, about making your goals measurable. So if you're familiar with the SMART goals process or framework, that is definitely a part of us, part of SMART goals. How can we make our goals measurable? Because I think it's true. As humans, we want evidence of progress. We want to be able to see with our very own eyes that we are making changes, that we're making progress and moving in a particular direction. And I think measuring goals can really help you see, are you making progress in the direction you want to go? And I think when you have those measurable goals, that can help you discover, am I spending time on something that's important to me? Or am I spending my time on something that honestly isn't that important to me? And I think if you have those measurable goals, that can help give you some perspective for the actions that you're taking in your life. So that's kind of thinking about making your goals measurable can be a strategy to kind of get you in that direction that you want to go, and figuring out, what matters to you, which obviously is important. And the last one, repetition, repetition, repetition. We and as James Clear talked about, as I mentioned on the previous slide, his focus is habits. And I think habits, if you think about it this way, habits get you closer to your goals. They are how you can really embody your identity. So here are a few examples. If you When you write each day, like if you're wanting to be a writer, if you write each day, each and every day, you are embodying the identity of a creative person who wants to be a writer, if that makes sense. When you make your bed each and every day, you're embodying the identity of an organized person. So the more you repeat a behavior, the more you reinforce that identity with that behavior. And those habits can really help you get closer and closer to who you want to be. So thinking about that bullseye, going back to who are you? And those habits can help you get there. So hopefully those strategies are making sense to everyone.
Thank you for sharing the strategies with us, Natalie. I also wanted to point out someone in the chat
Oh,
had
sure.
said, I read somewhere that if we share our goals before we achieve them, then we feel like we already reach our goals and we don't work on it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think
Interesting.
I think that goes a little bit into our community piece of sharing your goals with people can help you be held accountable, but also motivate you to continue sharing with your friends and kind of leaning on one another. So I like the thought.
Yeah.
So, what does all this goal setting have to do with leadership? That's why we're here. So, setting goals helps leaders stay focused on what truly matters. When people ask me how I keep my students motivated, how I keep them invested, I always say that it's important for me to have the student recognize why they are doing it and what their purpose is. Because purpose drives what we do and why we want to do it. And so if we can help students reach their goals, or if you can identify why you're doing it, then it's going to be more encouraging to help you get the tasks finished. So remember to focus on what matters for you and your why, and also staying on task. If you're wanting to accomplish something, leaders who are goal getters will stay on task. Sometimes it can be challenging, especially in a semester like this where there's so many different things going on and so many different things keeping our attention. But it's important to remember those end goals and remember those action steps we need to take to stay on task. Goal setting helps leaders maintain high standards, not only for themselves, but for whatever organization that they're a part of, for those around them. It can just Having those high standards helps you to realize what it is you want to accomplish and how you can motivate others to have those standards as well. Leaders can also inspire others to set goals. So, again, if you're working on a team or in a group and you're the one who's setting goals for yourself, you can help other people set goals so that you all can work as a team collaboratively to find success, whether it's with your project or maybe setting those goals for your project can also help others be like, this would be really great if I could set these goals for my personal life too. And so it's kind of, I guess, not let's see, not addicting, but when you're encouraging others, people want to do that same. They see the fire in you and they want to do that too. Um, Leaders who are goal getters also boost group morale and engagement. And so, again, like I said, that energy is contagious. And so, having those goals and achieving them can help you all feel motivated and engaged and want to complete something together. And goal getters, they make a difference, whether it's in their own personal lives or in the organizations they're involved in. People who set goals are able to accomplish them as long as they are willing to do the other pieces and find success in them. So we have a little bit of an activity for you all. So, in order to set successful goals, you must be able to meet yourself where you're at. In order to do that, you must evaluate where you are in some of the key areas in your life. So, what we'd like you all to do is if you have a piece of paper or if you're on your computer, you can pull up a Word document or something, but take a moment to rate your current level of satisfaction with the following areas of your life on a scale from 1 to 10. So we have the first category, work and school. So this could be if you have a part-time job, your schoolwork, your day-to-day schoolwork, um, any campus organizations that you're involved in, really anything that you feel like is contributing to your overall success in work or school. Um, Recreation includes hobbies, relaxation, spending time for you. It could also be a campus organization, depending on what your purpose is for being in a campus organization. So don't feel like you have to box in these things. It really is personal for you. And so when you're thinking about these categories, think about what they mean for you and how you would like to rate them for yourself. Finances. Are you saving money? Do you need to create a better budget? Are you happy with where you're at? How do you feel overall with your finances, and how can you set goals to help you kind of get to where you want to be? Health. We want to emphasize both physical health and mental health here. Both are important. And I think that they both also rely on each other. Sometimes when we do physical health activities, it can help improve our mental health. And so thinking about how those things kind of go in hand, you can rate both of them separately or you can rate them together as a whole, whatever that means for you. And relationships, so roommates, friends, if you have a significant other or family members, anyone in your life who you would consider having a somewhat of a relationship with, and how you want to define that. Again, totally up to you, but thinking of the people that you surround yourself with and how they might impact you. And also personal growth. So this could be maybe for you if you're a part of a faith-based organization. Are you wanting to explore this a little more or take on some kind of leadership position? Or just overall with your personal growth, are you dedicating enough time to your goals? Is this the first time all semester that you've even thought about goals? Do you want to feel more challenged? What ways do you want to grow? So again, each of these categories are very personal. So take the time to think through them and kind of rate where you're at and how you feel. All right, so now that you've had a little bit of time to think about these different areas, we thought we'd ask you all if you're comfortable and willing to share. Maybe what's the main takeaway? You could share some highlights. Maybe which area did you rank the highest? Which area you ranked the lowest? Or just overall in general, any large takeaways that you have, things you hadn't thought about before. Were you surprised by anything? If any of you would like to share, you can throw some things in the chat, or we also have the ability to unmute you all. So if you'd like to share live and via voice, then feel free to raise your hand virtually and let us know if you'd like to share anything.
I can share something too, Dae'lyn, if I'm allowed to play here. But I think something Dae'lyn and I do this kind of thing a lot, just because we try to kind of at least quarterly kind of think through where are we at with these different categories in our lives. And I think one of my lowest, pretty much always, is recreation. Is thinking about including fun. That might just be because I'm a graduate student and there's a lot in terms of work and school and everything kind of weighing on me a lot. So I think sometimes recreation can kind of fall by the wayside for me. So that's something I'm trying to think about. How can I work towards creating goals that kind of infuse more fun or recreation into my life? But one that I always rank really high for me is my health, because I think I'm always striving in terms of physical and mental health. That's something I put a lot of emphasis and priority on. So that's something for me, some takeaways and some observations.
Thanks for sharing, Natalie. I would say my highest are probably work and school. I really love what I do and love the program that we're in. And even though it's definitely been a challenging semester for many of us, I think that overall I feel more successful and confident in those areas. Um, Recreation too is okay for me. I would say probably my lowest is finances. Of course, being in grad school and even being an undergrad too, I'm sure there are challenges that come along with that. So that's kind of an area that I'm trying to work on, setting goals for saving money and doing better with that area. So I do see we have some people who are willing to share in the chat. So thank you. I don't know, I'm not sure if you all can see the chat, so I'm just going to say them just in case. We had someone say, I ranked my personal growth and recreation the highest, both which can be contributed to the recent added time I've had with the pandemic. And I've stayed involved with a lot of separate programs as well, which has helped me to stay afloat this year. However, my health is the lowest because of my recent overload of schoolwork, and I haven't been able to get outside as much. I agree with this, especially the recreation piece and being in quarantine. I think Natalie and I talked a lot about how we had more time at home and had more time to focus on some of those recreation pieces, and it kind of made me reflect on like, what are we doing in our normal like day-to-day lives that made quarantine something that could have been positive. So I know that, there's been challenges, of course, and it hasn't been positive for everyone, but I do think that there was time there that we all had to reflect on what we're doing with our life and what does this mean? And so I think I agree with that. For me personally, the recreation piece was definitely a little higher for me during quarantine. But yes, overall health can be low due to schoolwork and kind of the stressors of things going on. Another person mentioned want to work on mental and physical health. Yeah, that's always something. That's always something I think we have to think about actively. It's not necessarily something we can just let happen. So I think that's always something that we have to be thinking about if that's what we want to focus on. And this semester, one thing I have really worked on is my personal growth, joined a Catholic community here, and have really been growing more in my faith. So
we also had some ones above Dae'lyn. There were a few that just said highest areas, school, relationships, personal growth, but areas to work on for health and recreation. Someone else said they're ranking personal growth and recreation the highest. Oh yeah, we talked about that one. But yes, yeah. So I'm seeing some parallels and some common threads across some of those answers for sure.
Definitely. Thank you all for sharing. All right. So, the next thing that is important to think about when we're considering what goals we want to create for ourselves is who are you? Who you are helps you define where you're going and what you want your goals to be. So, one key piece of who you are is your values. Our own personal values make up who we are and why we want to do what we do. Knowing our values helps us align our goals with the things that we truly care about and creates congruence in our lives, which was something that Natalie spoke a little bit about earlier. But values represent the priorities that guide how we live our lives, how we decide what's most important, when we take a stand on things, and how we know what we are and are not willing to do in order to reach our goals. So I challenge you all to think about, what do you want to be known for? What do you want your legacy to be? Teaching truth, spreading joy, solving problems, whatever it is, let your goals align with these things and let your values really be emphasized within the goals that you set for yourself. Another thing is your passions. What fires you up? What drives you? It can be things, activities, experiences. These are so important to think about when it comes to setting goals, because we are always more willing to sacrifice our time, resources, and attention for the things that we love. And so, if we're incorporating these things into our goals, it's going to make it easier to accomplish what we set for ourselves. Even the simple things in life that you love can reveal passion. So make your goals align with these things. When you do determine what those passions are, do more of them. Do more today. Find ways to incorporate these things into your day-to-day life so you can feel motivated. An example would be, we spend a lot of time throughout the day on our phones. I have set a personal goal for myself to spend less time on my phone when I go to bed. And so, in order for me to find better success with my goal, I need to find the time to, I need to find things to fill that time that I'm passionate about instead. So for me, that looks like reading books about things that I'm passionate about or books that motivate me. So instead of just scrolling through my phone every night before bed, I decided that I was going to read before bed instead. So that kind of makes it a little bit easier. If I'm excited to go to bed and like read a little bit before I fall asleep, then I'm going to be more motivated to keep that goal than if I was just saying, I'm just not going to be on my phone. Because then that temptation is going to be there to go get on your phone and then scroll on it. And then there I am, awake for hours when I don't need to be. So another thing is motivations. So knowing what motivates us helps us to know how to reward ourselves and to keep us moving forward with our goals. So an example would be, do you feel motivated when you're challenged? Try to formulate actionable steps around things that challenge you, instead of just going about the day to day. Or do you feel motivated whenever someone or something encourages you? Surround yourself by those encouraging people, or allow yourself to incentivize your goals so that you're rewarded for your accomplishments when you get them. Another thing to think about is challenges or weaknesses. This could be identifying your own personal weaknesses or also identifying potential challenges and thinking ahead. It's important not to get too wrapped up in the anticipated challenges, but it's never a bad idea to consider them so you feel a little more prepared. There will always be challenges that we don't expect, so keeping that awareness can help us be more prepared when the change does happen. Let me be clear, your challenges and your weaknesses do not define you. However, naming them can help us meet them, face them, and strip them of their power and move forward. What I challenge you to think about, what have you decided that you can't do? What identity box or boxes have you unknowingly put yourself into? In the concept of designing your life, if you're familiar, we talk about those dysfunctional beliefs. So, what are you telling yourself that just isn't true? And how can you break it? Instead of telling yourself, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, try doing it, see what happens. Another thing to think about when considering who you are is your fears. Our fears try to hold us back, but we can't let them. In order to create goals, we need to think about our fears and how they might impact our success. We shouldn't let these fears hold us back, but bringing them into the light better prepares us for the times when we come to face them. Let me be clear. Your fears do not define you. However, naming our fears helps us meet them, face them, strip them of their power, and move forward. When we create our goals, we must ask ourselves what it would be like to step into our fears and take action. In the end, if we feel powerful, motivated, challenged, or successful, it's worth it. Finally, when thinking about who you are, we have to think about our past experiences. There are experiences from our past that make us who we are today. There are lessons that we have learned that brought us to where we are. Both good and bad experiences teach us lessons that help us press forward to the future that we want for ourselves. Uncovering these lessons from our past helps us create stronger goals. Don't just focus on the past either. The good thing, or the focus on the bad things of the past. The good things that it teaches us also works too. Let me be clear. Your past does not define you. However, naming the things we have overcome helps us to meet ourselves where we're at and again move forward.
Thank you so much, Dae'lyn. I think there's a lot here, right? There's a lot to really dive into, and it's exciting, but I'm sure, I know we can't physically see all of you right now, but you might be like, oh my gosh, this is heavy. This is heavy thinking about who I am and what I want to do and who I want to be. But I hope that also excites you, because there's a lot of potential there. And your goals can stem from these places, as Dae'lyn said. So we encourage all of you, we'll give you a few moments. Think about what is a goal that you're wanting to work on. Think about maybe it stems from one of these things. Maybe it really came to mind when you were doing your life evaluation from the previous slide. Think through what is a goal that you have that you really want to work on. It can be related to any aspect of your life, but I really challenge you to dig deep, to really think through. If you feel comfortable, you're welcome to share that in the chat, or we could unmute anyone who wants to share a little bit too. But we'll give you a few moments. Really think about this, dig deep. Who are you, and what kind of goal are you wanting to work on with the rest of this semester or beyond? So think through that a little bit, and we'll hop back on in just a moment, and do some sharing. We'll give you all just another moment here to think through what goals. I'm seeing a few roll in the chat, so feel free, if you're comfortable, no pressure whatsoever, but if you're comfortable sharing and want to throw it in the chat, that's totally fine. But even if you don't want to share, no biggie, but I still want you to write it down somewhere, because holding yourself accountable, having it written down is important. So whether you put it in the chat and speak it into existence, or if you're writing it down somewhere that you can see it, up to you. As long as you're writing it down, that's what Dae'lyn and I care about. So we'll give you just another moment here. All right. Just for the sake of time, maybe we'll go ahead and jump in. Sound good, Dae'lyn? Yeah. Okay. So I saw a goal, a couple goals come in the chat, and I wanted to mention a few things. So these are some great goals that we have here. So someone shared two big goals. They want to maintain a 3.5 GPA or higher. Oh gosh, my thing. Okay. During the time here at BG, and want to hold a leadership position in my sorority to help grow and learn about myself. Those are some great goals, some great things to think about. And I challenge you to go back to that identity piece. So, okay, I want to maintain a 3.5 GPA or higher. What are the small steps that can help me get in that direction? What is the schedule that I can set for myself? From that identity piece, I want to be the person who prioritizes my academics. So maybe that means like that small example, setting a little timer. I'm going to work on homework for 30 minutes uninterrupted. I'm not going to look at my phone, something like that. So think about those are great big goals, but how can we break them down into even smaller ones? So thank you so much for sharing. That's just something I wanted to point out there. I also see something at the bottom that says something I want to work on is physical health, starting an exercise routine, eating healthier, so I'm fueling my body in a positive way and can feel more energized. That is awesome. Those are some great goals to think about in terms of physical health. Which I think can also help with mental health as well. They all go together. So thank you so much for sharing those. That's a really good goal to work towards. And like I said, how can we break that down even smaller into smaller tangible pieces? So thank you for that. If you want to keep sharing, go ahead and throw them in the chat. No worries. I may have lost Dae'lyn here, but we can go ahead and keep moving forward, and hopefully we'll be able to get Dae'lyn back here in just a moment. We're kind of getting close here on time, so we are going to just finish out with a few resources for all of you, just to kind of help aid in your goal setting process. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about is planners. So there are a number of goal planners out there that can really help you stay accountable to your goals. So one of the things Dae'lyn and I both we both use this intentional goal planner from a company called Cultivate What Matters, entitled the Power Sheets Goal Planner. We are particularly obsessed with that brand and that particular planner because it helps you. You have monthly goals, weekly goals, daily goals. It's a really cool way to kind of lay it all out. But that's something to keep in mind. There's passion planners, Erin Condren planners, simplified. You got to find what works for you and go from there. So those are some things with that. We also wanted to mention some podcast options for all of you. So some podcast options, these can help you either when it comes to goal setting, but also just help you with some things in terms of life and how we can cultivate a life that we care about in a lot of ways. So here are some podcast options that all of you can take into account, books or podcasts, I'm sorry. So we've got Designing Your Life, which Dae'lyn mentioned earlier, Atomic Habits, which was a big part of our presentation earlier, Good Morning, Good Life. Dae'lyn is a fan of that one. That is a book thinking about how can I cultivate a morning routine that brings me joy in a lot of ways. So that's something you might have a goal like, I would love to, start a morning routine. That might be a good book to read to help get you towards that goal. Some podcasts, we've got Unlocking Us by Brene Brown. While that's not a particular goal setting podcast by any means, I think it's talking about a lot of these topics, especially with the who you are. It can kind of get at a lot of those topics there. There's also the One You Feed. Dae'lyn, do you want to mention a little bit about that one?
Sure. So again, it's not necessarily a goal setting one, but just a really good one for encouragement and motivation. It's talking about how if you've ever heard the analogy about the wolves, Natalie kind of made fun of me a little bit when I talked about this. So I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but basically it's like if you have the wolf of like that's of discouragement or like hopelessness versus the wolf of hope and joy, whichever one you feed is the one that will be cultivated. And so that's kind of what that analogy is about a little bit. But the podcast is really neat because it's just a little bit of encouragement to help you think about those things. So, but
Awesome.
with Natalie was saying with the Good Morning, Good Life one, finding a podcast that aligns with your personal goals. It might not be, it doesn't have to be just a specific like goal setting podcast, but whatever goal you have in mind, think of a podcast that you can listen to or a book that you can read that can help motivate you to do those things.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dae'lyn. And the last thing that we wanted to just briefly touch on are some other resources. Dae'lyn, feel free to hop in as we kind of talk through some of these. But one thing that I recently discovered is that Google Calendar has a goal setting option. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Google Calendar, but on Google, if you're looking especially at the Google Calendar app on your phone, there's a little plus sign in the bottom corner. And on there, typically you can like add an event or a meeting or something like that. But there's also an option to add a goal, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it's a really cool thing. And there's different options you can choose from. So after you hit, I want to set a goal, there's different options for exercise, building a skill, friends and family, me time, organize my life. And then, so like, let's say I said, okay, I want to build a skill and I want to do more sewing because there's different options that pop up. You can answer a few questions about how long are you wanting to do this or build this skill? How often are you wanting to do it? And then Google looks at your calendar and inserts times accordingly to provide that schedule, which we know setting a schedule and not a deadline is important for goal setting. So that's something that's a really cool option and another resource that you can use to help get you closer to your goals. Dae'lyn, any thoughts on these last couple?
Yeah, so of course, journaling, again, keeping track. I imagine when I got kicked out there a second ago that Natalie was talking a little bit about power sheets, which I don't know if you showed yours, but
I did not. I was thinking you were going to.
I wanted to show off my little power sheet goal planner here. So not technically a journal, but the same concept of inside our little goal planner here, we're keeping track of our progress. We're writing the successes, the failures. We're thinking about what we want to do moving forward. So any type of journaling, even if you don't want to invest in a specific resource, just a piece of paper or something to keep track of your successes and failures can help you continue to set those goals moving forward. Also, a vision board is great. I actually also have a vision board, but I won't show you that one. I won't bore you. But my all of my different goals are incorporated into my vision board, and so I have that in front of me to keep me motivated. And then again, each other. We keep stressing this, but it's so important to rely on each other and to surround yourself with people who are going to lift you up. So don't forget about the people around you too.
Awesome. Thanks, Dae'lyn. So that is pretty much all we have for you. So thank you so much. We wanted to leave you with this little, this is from Cultivate What Matters, the people that made the power sheets. So goals will not change your life. Knowing what matters will. Goals are just how you get there. And we really like that. And we wanted to leave you all with that. So if you have any questions, Our names and emails are there, so feel free to reach out to us should you have any questions about this. But we also can, right here in a second, we can pause our or stop our recording and just hang out for just a few moments if anyone has any last questions. But thank you all so much for being here. We so appreciate your time. We hope you had an awesome day for this conference. This is kind of a first for the Marvin Center, and we really hope that you got a lot out of it and got to attend some great presentations and everything. Can you send us the presentation? We should be able to. I can see if we can pull a participant list and send it over. So good. Day well spent. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad yeah, a day of leadership education. Love it. Oh, you're welcome. I'm so glad. Yay. James Clear. Oh yeah, you should definitely. I highly recommend. It's over on my nightstand, but it's a great book. They have it on Amazon. It's really, really good. So highly recommend. Yay. Oh, good. Yay. Awesome. I'm so glad. And I encourage all of you, if you're still here with us, no worries if you've checked out, but the Marvin Center has great programs that are coming up too, so feel free to take advantage of them. We're also hiring for our student leadership assistant position in the Marvin Center, so if you're interested in facilitation or different leadership education endeavors, feel free to look into that position on our website. It's just bgsu.edu/leadership, where you can learn more about that position and all of our programs to learn more about leadership education. So yeah. Dae'lyn, any last thoughts?
No, just echoing what Natalie said. Thank you all for being here. It's been so great to help you all think about these things, and I hope that you have some good takeaways. But again, email us if you have questions about any of it or would like to talk through some of the resources too. We love talking about power sheets. So
We sure do. We sure do. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yes, and you're free to leave. You are good to go. Have a good rest of your day. Go forth and be a goal getter out there, people. All right. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.